Okay, and we're back for the third video lecture for week 5 for AR105. And we are looking at St. Peter's, sort of a subset of looking at the artist Bernini within the Baroque period. So here we are looking at the, I would say the front porch, the atrium of St. Peter's Basilica. These are the two of the three doors. This is the middle door that only the Pope can go through on certain Jubilee days. The official entrance is right over here for visitors. Okay, and this is what you walk in and see. Now, what usually happens is people come streaming in, because there's usually a lot more people than what you see here, come streaming in and they hold up their phones above their heads or their video camcorders, whatever camera they have, and they're trying to show this view. Now, when we look at it, what are we seeing? We're seeing marble floor. This is very similar to what's inside the Pantheon. Very colorful marble, different stripes and coloration, very polished. The sides, these columns, everything that you see here is marble. And even when you see the details here and up here, that is some sort of stone, sometimes even gold covered stone, but everything is encrusted with marble and stone. There is no paint anywhere. These are not frescoes. It is pure stone. That's what you're seeing. Okay, now notice the perspective here. People this size quickly move to people that size, to people that size, to people that size. So very quickly, you get taken by how immense this place is. For scale, and we'll get to this in a minute, of the baldacchino, the covering over the main altar to the top of the cross from the floor, is just under 100 feet, right at 95 plus. Okay, so a 10-story building is sitting here, basically. Here's the great rotunda holding up the dome, and these letters here on that gold stripe come all the way around the inside, and then another inscription comes all the way here, and you can see it here and here. That gold space right there is about 4 feet to 5 feet tall. I've heard a few different quotes on that, right? And then up here, there are angels and cherubs and all that look like they're just floating, coming out from the architecture. Now, if we think back to Raphael's great fresco in the papal apartments, some people call it the School of Athens, some call it philosophy. Philosophy is the official term for it. This was created underneath Julius II, the Pope, and Julius started this design of St. Peter's. This was being constructed the same time as this was being painted. Now, what we see here is arch, arch, barrel vault, rotunda, rotunda, windows, windows. These designs here above the piers, you can see these. And then the structure as it comes forward, another barrel vault, barrel vault. So from this perspective, we're basically seeing that Raphael knew what was being built over here, just about 100 yards away, or a little over 100 yards away. So what he's putting is an architectural rendering of this space, even though it was nowhere close to being complete at that time. So he's giving this sort of foreshadowing of what is going to happen. Here's another view of the inside. I wish we could get the scale for you. Notice the people here and then this statue. And then this statue here on this pier. All right. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you is, let me go back here. As you come in this entrance, people take their pictures here and then they instantly turn to the right, because inside of this niche right here in this little chapel is the Pietà by Michelangelo. Okay, and you can find images of that online anywhere. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Old St. Peter's. Now, this outline here is the existing new St. Peter's. This double line here is old St. Peter's. Okay, this is the old basilica that was created by Constantine. And you can see that it fits inside of the new basilica. Okay, and underneath these green lines, that's underneath the floor of the new basilica. So what happened, oh, and the red here, these little tiny boxes, that's the necropolis or city of the dead. That's burial places for people in ancient Roman times before legalizing Christianity. So over in this space here is the Hippodrome of Nero, where the Apostle Peter was executed. And the story is, and there's somewhat evidence for this, that he was buried over here on a hill, the Vatican Hill. And then over time, there were tombs that were built, more complete structures, instead of just putting into the ground into a nameless hole or grave, that they actually started building above ground buildings to hold the dead. And many people think that that's because they knew this is where Peter was buried. So on the new church, when it started being created, they started creating the outside walls and the inside piers as this church was still inside of it. And we have this drawing from that time where we see the facade of Old St. Peter's inside the already partially completed barrel vault of the new St. Peter's, because they still were having services inside the old church as the new one is being built over that time. There's an excellent book by the artist that I talked about before, Ross King, talking about the construction of St. Peter's. Very readable, and I would promote that you read that. Now, just real quick, here's a cutaway cross-section of the basilica, and the present-day church is in black above here. Here's the baldacchino that we'll look at in a second, and the main high altar. The red part here are the tombs underneath, or the grottos underneath the new St. Peter's, and these are modern, so to speak, modern 1600s, 1700s. The ground underneath originally was about this blue, and here's those separate tombs. When they started building the new St. Peter's, they got down to this level and they found these grottos. So apparently when Constantine started creating the new St. Peter's, they understood that this is where Peter was buried, and then they had these. Well, you need flat ground to build your building. So instead of destroying all of these tombs, they filled them up. They put piers on either side, walls on either side of them to support them, and then filled it with dirt. So this became part of the understructure of the old St. Peter's. Then when the new St. Peter's is built, they put these grottos on top of that. And some people think that they didn't even know that these were here. And real quickly, back during, I think it was the 1960s, a pope allowed archaeology to go on underneath the altar. And what they found were several different things, several floor levels, and then underneath all of it, there was a tomb with a red wall, and then there were inscriptions on the wall with Peter's name and other evidence and graffiti. So they opened up that, and there were bones of a Semitic, possibly Hebrew male who had been crucified. Now, an older man, we can't tell exactly whether that was Peter's bones or not, but it is interesting that all the way through the centuries, there was that story, that understanding. This was where Peter was buried, and then that's where Constantine put his great church and then the new church on top of that. So lots and lots of history along with the great architecture. This is looking up into the dome, and we see this structure here. Oh, by the way, the dome designed by Michelangelo. Most of the design here, when you look at where the structures are and the design elements, those are designed by Michelangelo. He really brought everything into a cohesive nature, and then later artists finished it up. So let's look at this structure, the baldacchino. Okay, the baldacchino covers the high altar of the Catholic Church. It's right here. Okay, this is the altar, and then above it is 4 columns, and then almost like a tent structure above it with this ornate, could call it a crown or a pyramid type structure above it with a great orb and then a bronze covered in gold cross. Dimensions here from the tip of the cross to the floor, 95 feet, nearly 100 feet. Okay, solid bronze, although as with bronze sculptures of any size, it's going to be a hollow space with a thickness of wall around it. Here, what I have heard is it's probably about 2 to 3 inches thick in bronze. Okay, so a lot of bronze went into this. And anywhere that it looks like there's gold, that is gold. The angels up on top are nearly 20 feet tall, so larger than Michelangelo's David. Thank you. And let's take another view here, because remember back when we talked about the Pantheon, being covered, the dome at least being covered with bronze. Well, as Bernini was needing bronze to build this huge structure, the Pope allowed him and ordered him to go take the bronze off the dome of the Pantheon. And underneath the roof tiles, the ceiling tiles underneath here on the porch. So tons and tons and tons and tons of bronze were torn down off this original old structure, melted down, and then melted down to create this structure. And some of it also went to create cannons for the Pope's armies. Okay. Now, what's interesting, these banners here hanging down, those are not fabric. Those are actual bronze, and these tassels are bronze also. Okay, so it's created by Bernini in such a way that it really looks like structure, and it is said that he designed these curlicue spiral columns to be after Solomon's temple's columns. Now, we don't know whether Solomon's temple had that curlicue effect to it or not, but it makes a good story. And we'll go on to the next one and hopefully go a bit faster.